Yes guys, I'm Brad. Welcome back to the channel. It's FA Cup weekend, so I've got my predictions for you. So of course, everyone's favourite cup competition, the FA Cup, is back this weekend for round 5, the round of 16. I just want to start this video by saying apologies for no long form video over the last few days. I was planning to do a long form predictions video for the Premier League midweek games, but I just didn't get time because I was ill at the start of the week. But as you'll have seen, I did put them on the short section, so I've not missed out on them completely. And my aim for the rest of the season now is to try and get predictions out every weekend for the Premier League. Like I mentioned, this weekend is different, no Premier League action because it's FA Cup weekend instead. Of course, so far in this season, rounds 3 and 4 have been so many twists, so many turns, and as neutrals, most fans were wanting the exact same to happen in round 5. There wasn't too many shocks in round 4, the main ones being Mansfield beating Burnley away, then Port Vale beating Bristol City. But now in round 5, we're getting to the nitty gritty of the competition, who wants to win it, who's going to fall out. Of course, 16 teams in this round, only 8 can progress to the quarterfinals. Just before we get into this video, if you enjoy this sort of content, leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. Of course, any like, any subscription, any comments are greatly appreciated. Of course, I started this content journey by making TikToks and branching out to this YouTube world. So if you enjoy this sort of content, feel free to stick around. Shall we get into some predictions then? Starting off on Friday night at Molineux as Wolves take on Liverpool. Of course, this is a replay of the game that was played on Tuesday night in the Premier League, Wolves coming out 2-1 victors. Of course, Andre got that goal in the last minute to give them the 2-1 lead and the win. And although it's looking like they may get relegated, they're not going down without a fight. Whereas for Liverpool, it stopped an impressive run of 4 wins in a row in all competitions. So I think it makes that Wolves victory even more of a statement for both teams. Of course, in round 4, Wolves managed to scrape past Grimsby 1-0. But as you can see on the screen now, then pitch conditions were the main talking point of that match. I mean, look at the state of that pitch. How did that game go ahead? Whereas for Liverpool, a comfortable 3-0 victory against Brighton at home sealed their place in the 5th round. And I think for these two teams, the cup is still a really big thing they want to be a part of. Of course, for Wolves, they are going down, but they want to give the fans something to cheer about. Whereas for Liverpool, they're not going to win the Premier League, of course, they might not win the Champions League, they need something to cheer about this season. And I think winning something like the FA Cup is perfect to ensure that Liverpool don't have a horrid season. And I think for them reasons, I think both teams will go nearly full strength. Unlike Tuesday night, I can see Liverpool getting the job done 2-1. I think Adam Armstrong will get the goal for the host, but I think Salah and Ekitike will ensure Liverpool are in the quarters. Of course, Saturday's first game is Mansfield, big day in the FA Cup at home to Arsenal. And what a tie that is for Mansfield. Of course, their fans will be packing the place out. Of course, Mansfield have been so impressive to get to this stage. Of course, beating Sheffield United 4-3 away and then Burnley 2-1 away. And now they finally get the home clash, and who better to have it against than Arsenal. Of course, the Gunners have got to this stage fairly comfortably, beating Portsmouth 4-1, then Wigan 4-0. And of course, at the moment, they're still for the quadruple, so they want to do everything to win this game. And the form is so odd for this game because, of course, Mansfield haven't won a game since beating Burnley 2-1. I mean, how can you go from beating Burnley to drawing with teams like Wimbledon and Rotherham? Of course, Arsenal are in decent form, filming this before the match on Wednesday. But of course, them 2 games before the Brighton one, of course, beating Chelsea 2-1 and Tottenham 4-1. Of course, it's a massive day for a club like Mansfield. Of course, they're going to be up for the cup, but I don't think that's going to be enough. I think Arsenal should walk away with this one. I think Mansfield will score at some point, though, to make the game quite interesting. I'm going to go for a 3-1 Arsenal victory, Trossard getting a double and Gyökeres getting the other. I think Reece Hopes will get that goal for Mansfield to give them a bit of hope, but it won't be enough. Now we move over to Wales for the evening kick-off, Wrexham versus Chelsea. And of course, Wrexham are flying at the moment, looking to cement their playoff place in the Championship. If you look at Wrexham's last 5, they've all drawn 1, of course, 2 impressive victories over Ipswich in the league and the cup. Like I mentioned, this is being filmed Wednesday afternoon, so I don't know the result in the Aston Villa-Chelsea match. But Chelsea's form before that is very patchy, of course, drawing to Burnley and Leeds. And Chelsea will be targeting this game to try and get some silverware this season because they have that of the Champions League. And they're not going to win the Champions League, so I think this is the best option. I think this could definitely be the match of the round. I think there's going to be entertainment, goals galore. And I'm going to go bold for this one. I'm going to go for a Wrexham 3-2 win after extra time. I think the game will be 2-2 at full time with Kiefer Moore and Broadway grabbing the goals for Wrexham. I think Palmer and Neto will grab the goals that take this to extra time, but I think Kiefer Moore again will bag the winning goal in extra time. I think for Chelsea it'll be another disappointing defeat, and I think for Wrexham it'll be another string to their bow. Now we move up north for a brilliant clash between Newcastle and Man City, 8 o'clock kick-off. And I've got to say, under the lights at St James's Park, this should be a brilliant game. Of course, Newcastle now are going to finish mid-table in the Premier League, probably won't get Europe, probably won't go down. So a game like this where they could potentially go and win the cup is a massive thing for them. And I think the fans and the players will be well up for this game to try and beat Man City. Of course, you've got to say their form is definitely on Man City's side, if anything. I mean, Man City now just seem to be in that flow state where they just get win after win after win. And at the moment, you genuinely don't see what's stopping this Man City side winning everything. Of course, both teams play on Wednesday night, so I don't know the result of them games yet. But of course, based on the form, you'd certainly back Man City. And of course, you've seen Man City beat Newcastle in 2 cup games early in the season in the Carabao Cup semis. But they lost 2-1 to Newcastle in the league fixture in November, so it could go either way. But I think Man City will just about go through 2-1. I think Voltemade will score for Newcastle, but I think goals from Semenyo and Bernardo Silva will send City through. But this should be a brilliant clash between 2 teams who want to win the cup for different reasons. Moving on to Sunday games now, the first one being Fulham-Southampton. And I've got to say, it's not the best of clashes in the FA Cup, is it? It's a clash of 2 teams that probably aren't going to win the FA Cup, but they want to get as far as possible. And you've got to say, even though they're in different leagues, it's 2 teams that are on some decent form. Of course, in the 4th round, both teams left it fairly late to get through to this round. For Fulham, it took a Harrison Reed goal in the 84th minute to send them through versus Stoke. Whereas for Southampton, it took till the 109th minute in extra time with James Breed to grab that winner. Like I mentioned, neither team are going to win the cup, but they want to try and get to Wembley, I suppose. And I suppose Southampton, of course, will travel well to back their team. I think it's a close match. It could definitely go either way, but I'm going to go for a Fulham 2-1 home victory. I think Finnazaz will give Southampton to the lead, but then goals from Jimenez and Smith-Rowe will give Fulham the victory. The next game up on Sunday is Port Vale versus Sunderland. Of course, a couple of days ago, Port Vale beat Bristol City 1-0 at home in extra time to get to this stage. And despite sitting rock bottom of League 1 and destined for League 2, it looks like they're going to give it their all in the FA Cup. But their opponents don't get any easier. Of course, Sunderland are having a brilliant season. Of course, Sunderland beat Everton away on penalties in the third round, before a 1-0 away victory to Oxford to make sure they got to the fifth round. And I think Sunderland, as a newly promoted club, have definitely got a decent chance of this FA Cup, because they're in no danger at all of going down really, so they might as well give it their all in the FA Cup, see how far they can go. And a trip to the third tier should be an easy task for Sunderland, but of course this is the FA Cup, anything could happen. To be fair, Port Vale haven't been on awful form in League 1, a couple of draws, a couple of wins. Obviously it's not going to be enough to keep them from going to League 2, but they're putting up a fight. Sunderland managed to pick up the first win since the start of Feb against Leeds on Tuesday night, and despite there being a chance for an upset, I think it's going to be a comfortable Sunderland victory. I think Sunderland will win 3-1 to make sure they get to the quarter-finals. I think Ben Waine will score for Port Vale, but I think a double from my end and a goal from Lafay will send Sunderland to the quarter-finals. The final game of Sunday is in Yorkshire as Leeds take on Norwich City. Both teams beat Championship opposition to get to this stage. Of course, Leeds won that penalty shootout against Birmingham in the fourth round, whereas Norwich got a comfortable enough 3-1 victory against West Brom. Of course, for Leeds, it looks like they're going to stay in the Premier League this season, edging closer to survival, whereas Norwich under Philippe Clement have a brilliant turnaround. Of course, it looked like they were going down, but now they're sitting comfortably at only 17th, but still about 10 points away from relegation, and the work he's done at Norwich is nothing short of phenomenal. I think the same can be said about Daniel Farke mid-season as well. Of course, at the start of December, he had the Liverpool and Chelsea games to save his job, and for most managers, you think, yeah, they'd be gone after them two games, but his Leeds team managed to grab a 3-1 victory versus Chelsea and a 3-3 draw against Liverpool, and then the turnaround with his three-at-the-back system has been spectacular for Daniel Farke. Once again, it's a clash of two teams that don't really have too much to play for in the league now, so I think they'll both put out fairly strong teams, of course try and go for it, get to the quarters, because it's one of them, even if you don't win the competition, to get to Wembley in the semis is a brilliant achievement in itself. I can see this being quite a tight game to fair, one that I think will go to extra time. I'm going to say 1-1 in normal time, then I'm going to say Leeds win it 2-1 in extra time. I think Ali Ahmed will give Norwich a lead before Leeds equalise through Anton Stark, and then in extra time I think Jada Bogle, of all people, will get the winner. And then on to the final tie now on Monday night, West Ham versus Brentford, a London derby. I don't think it's necessarily a derby as such, but it's two teams that play in London, and to be fair, it's only one of 3 all-Premier League clashes in this round. Of course, based on this season, two teams at polar opposites of the table. As I'm filming this Wednesday afternoon, West Ham are sitting in 18th, of course fighting for their life in the relegation zone, and Brentford sits 7th, of course looking for European football, which will be a massive achievement for them and Keith Andrews. I mean, we need to have a word about Keith Andrews. He's been absolutely phenomenal this season, taking Brentford to a new level. I'm not ashamed to admit it, I thought Brentford would go down under Keith Andrews. I just thought them losing a Burmo, losing Visser and a new manager that isn't experienced, I just thought they'd go down. But thanks to Thiago Anutara, they've been absolutely brilliant, they've got even better. And I'd even go as far as saying there's an argument for Keith Andrews to be manager of the season. Your first season as a manager losing 2 of your top players and then finishing top half most likely. I mean, that's some impressive stuff, you know. Anyway, back to the game at hand and the form, of course, only one win in the Premier League between each of these in the last 5 games. And unsurprisingly, both were against Burnley, to be fair. Of course, both teams beat low league opposition to get to this stage. Both tight 1-0 wins, West Ham beat Burton and Brentford beat Macclesfield. I'm not too sure what to expect from this. I think West Ham will rest a few players because of the relegation battle. But I think with Brentford, it's a free hit to try and go for it to try and get to Wembley at least. Because with that momentum in the league, what's stopping them going all the way? I know it's a tough ask, but it's the magic of the cup, you never know what's going to happen. And you only have to take a look at last year Crystal Palace, of course, to find all the odds. I think this game will finish 1-1 after full time and extra time. I think Igor Thiago will open the scoring for Brentford for Tati Castellanos equalises for West Ham. And then I think it'll be Brentford, the away side, that win this tie on penalties. But this is one of these unpredictable ties where it just could go either way. And there we go, guys, that's my FA Cup predictions for this weekend, round 5. As always, if you enjoy this sort of content, leave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you don't know, I post videos on Instagram and TikTok, short form content. The links to them in the description. Any follows or likes or shares are greatly appreciated as always. Let me know in the comments if you think there'll be any upsets in the cup this weekend, and I'll see you guys in the next one.